Welcome to Doing Well with Diabetes, a collaboration between the International Diabetes Federation and the Diabetics Doing Things podcast. I'm your host, Rob Howe. Doing Well with Diabetes is a series interviewing athletes living with diabetes from around the globe to help inspire the next generation of athletes with diabetes to continue to work towards their dreams while doing well with diabetes. Doing Well with Diabetes is part of the Kids and Diabetes in Schools program from the International Diabetes Federation and is supported by Sanofi and ISBAD. Diabetics Doing Things has donated all production and promotion in kind. To learn more about the Kids program, visit kids.idf.org. And to hear more from Diabetics Doing Things, visit diabeticsdoingthings.com/subscribe. Now give it up for our next guest on Doing Well with Diabetes. Hello and welcome to a very special collaboration and series between the International Diabetes Federation and Diabetics Doing Things. This is Doing Well with Diabetes, and I'm your host, Rob Howe. And today's guest, I'm extremely excited to introduce to you because we share a passion for basketball, and we were both living with diabetes for almost the same number of years. Lara McSpadden, I'm so excited that you're here. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Rob. I can't wait.
So, Lara, let's talk a little bit about who you are, and then let's dig into, your life with diabetes, because you've been living with diabetes for nearly 18 years. And as a professional basketball player, I imagine there were some crazy ups and downs in the early years that have led you to where you are today. But for those who may not know you, introduce yourself.
As you said, my name is Lara. Yeah, I've had diabetes for almost 18 years. I was born in Western Sydney, but I've spent most of my life growing up in Newcastle, which is about an hour and 45 minutes north of Sydney. It's one of the best, I would say, like beach surfing towns in Australia. So big beach girls, spent a lot of my life by the beach doing surf life saving. I am finishing my degree right now in high school teaching in HPE, so health and physical education and geography in high school, which is different to America, I believe. High school is like middle and high school combined here, I think. So yeah, finishing that. I've been a professional basketball player this is my 9th season, so straight out of high school. Was lucky enough to get into the WNBL, and this is my first year playing overseas, I guess, which I guess it's not really that far from home. It's only like 3 hours. So, but yeah, that's kind of me. Yeah.
Well, and you also were a member of the U17 Australian national team. I think they won gold at a FIBA World Championships. So, like you said, for 9 years, straight out of that high school, like turning 18 and turning pro, you're not new to this. That's pretty exciting to be in your 9th year.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's the way the league's going now. There's so many good players that miss out. We only have 8 teams in Australia. So I was really fortunate to be given the opportunity to play for my home team as well, for the Sydney Flames. I'm straight out of high school. And yeah, we won a championship in that year, which was in the same year as the under 17 Sapphires team. So it was kind of everything was going on. It was good.
Oh, that's exciting. And like you mentioned, you're now, overseas. For those who aren't watching on video, we're doing the air quotes because you're in New Zealand playing for the Tauranga Y. And I also know as a beach girl, it's probably great to be in Tauranga because I was looking up like where that is and what that's like. It seems like a really amazing beach town.
Oh, for sure. I mean, everyone that I spoke to about coming here before I got here was like, oh, it's the best like tourist beach destination in New Zealand. And I was like, well, I made the right choice.
Pretty easy.
Yeah.
Pretty easy to sell you on that. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's dig into sort of the early years of your life with diabetes because we're going to talk about living well and doing well with diabetes over a long period of time. And so, what do you remember about the early days of your diagnosis or some of the early years of you living with diabetes?
I think one of the main things I would say is from my memory, I was very lucky to have like super locked in like parents and family and like a support group. Yeah, and my mum and dad were really like crucial in embedding kind of the good habits that you need to have as a diabetic. So yeah, they were really good for me. My friends were always on top of it, like more so like if I was acting weird or, like slurring, I'm not with it. They're like, Lara, you need to sort yourself out. I'm like, okay. Yeah. Even as much as I didn't want to be like, oh, it's my diabetes. But yeah, probably the other thing was I definitely did struggle with the way that it changed my thinking about how I ate. Like, being 8 years old and going to like kids' parties and having to be like, oh, I actually can't just go to the lolly table and like grab all of these lollies. That was definitely a struggle. But I mean, again, I had like all of my friends' parents were aware of the situation. So they wouldn't say no. They would be like, oh, make sure you do, you check your bloods and you do your insulin if you need to do it. And I definitely saw it as a hassle and I still do see it as a hassle sometimes. But yeah, they were really supportive. So that was definitely the main thing that I remember from when I was first diagnosed.
That's such a challenge being so young, right? And
Mm.
to see all your friends running over, we don't have lolly tables in the US, but like, a big pile of cake is what
Yeah.
I imagine as well. And I know that many people talk about as like a really challenging point for them adjusting to living with diabetes. But like you said, your parents were really locked in and, I'm sure they were having conversations with your friends' parents as well. And it seems like, that supportive environment, do you feel like that allowed you to, I don't know if normalize is the right word, but at least sort of make peace with the day to day of diabetes management?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially when you're freshly diagnosed, it's this like big new thing. So it already feels like out of whack. But yeah, with the support of, yeah, the support groups that I had, it definitely made it feel like less of a change to the way I was going to have to live my life. Yeah.
And what do you remember about your diagnosis? You being, 8 years old, like, it can be, some people don't really remember. I know even I was 16 and there's, not too much of the life before diabetes that I really remember,
Mm.
as far as details these days. But what do you remember about your actual diagnosis?
So I remember the night before, and the night before, sorry, I was saying before, we're from Western Sydney, where my mum, dad's family are from Penrith. So we were watching the Penrith Panthers play the NRL. It was like a Thursday night or something. And I just went to the toilet like 6 times during the game. And mum was like, that's not right. Like, take you to get checked out the next morning. And the next day, I had my primary school's like elementary school netball gala day. I was so gassed for this game, for this day. Like, I really wanted to go. But mum was like, no, we got to go to the doctors. So it was like before school and everything. My brother had just been born. So my brother was like really young. So mum and dad are in there and I get like my blood test done and I'm waiting with Campbell outside and they walk out and mum's crying and I'm like, what's going on? But yeah, that's what I remember. And then I just spent the next like, I don't know, however many days it was, 10 or something like that, learning about diabetes in hospital. And that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I think like those early days, especially having to learn so much, and like especially being so young, I imagine that it's probably a lot of information, and like you, I had amazing parents who
Mm.
really helped me out a lot, and I attribute all of my especially early success with diabetes to them. So when did you know you've been a pro here for now 9 years? When did basketball become a part of your life?
So I've started playing basketball when I was 12. So kind of late in the game, most people in Australia start. I mean, around the world, they're like baby ballers and they have a ball in their hand at like 3 years old. But I'd come from surf life saving and netball, and like netball and basketball have this whole like war thing where it's like you do one or the other. But one of my dad's colleagues, his daughter was doing basketball at the time, and he was like, "Oh, you should get Lara to try basketball." Like, I mean, you can't like see how tall I am, but I'm like, I'm the tallest girl like most people have seen in their lives. So they were like, "She's tall. She's gonna be like have an advantage. You should give it a crack." So yeah, started at 12, and then yeah, and that had to kind of be the only thing that I did. So I was trying to do like most kids do two things at the same time, but I couldn't just because I was really lucky to get opportunities and progress my game quite quickly, I guess.
Yeah, one of the first questions that I get and my sister and my brother always get is, "Do you play basketball?" So, anytime you're for the international listeners, anytime you're over, 190 centimeters, you're gonna be, in rare territory. So,
Mm,
what do you, I guess, as you were growing up too, and this is really interesting because I know you mentioned that you're majoring in high school, like physical education. Like, what do you remember about your school environment as you were growing up? Like, did you feel supported? This program and this podcast is supported by the IDF, but also by the kids program, and so it's really important for us to kind of dig into, did you feel supported by your teachers and by your programs? Like, what were the challenges that you faced? Like, anything that comes up for you?
again, I was really lucky to be supported in like I would say all of the environments that I've kind of existed in, I guess. I guess in high school, like you would know like the onus of your health kind of shifts more onto you. The longer you have it, the older you get. So I definitely had a bit more control, but my friends were really, yeah, really locked in, and they'd like get really involved. They'd be like, "Oh, can I don't know if it's weird, but I would be like, do you wanna practice? Do you wanna, like, help me give my insulin?" And then and I had this one friend who was always like, "Oh my god, let me do it," because she was, like, obsessed with that sort of thing. But, yeah, no, I had very good, like, supportive environments from staff to my friends in high school. Yeah, I can't really complain about anything, yeah.
Well, I think, like, being open is such a huge obstacle that many people have to face at some point in their life with diabetes. Over the years, I've kind of, after talking to so many people, come up with this sort of idea that you're diagnosed twice, or, once when the doctor tells you, and then once when you really have that acceptance and you make it part of your life. And something that my parents and I decided for me when I was being recruited to play at university was that we were going to be upfront with the teams about my diabetes, because like I was going to have to be there and manage my diabetes with them. And not knowing it at the time, it had only been a few years of living with diabetes for me. That made a huge difference in the way that the next 4 years played out for me. So for you, how does diabetes show up in your day-to-day life as a professional, going from team to team sometimes, like for, this year, starting with a new team, having to meet a new staff, like having to meet new teammates. How do you continue to do well with diabetes, and what steps do you take to make sure that you're set up for success?
I guess the first thing that I do is if I like, this is a perfect example. I'm coming onto a new team. There is one player on the team that I have played with before several times, but majority of none of the staff, none of the local girls know, none of the imports know I have diabetes. I get them all together and I just basically tell them this is what it is and what I have to do and what that looks like at trainings and games, and then what they should be kind of looking out for if they notice anything. Yeah, but other than that, like it's so much about being like thinking ahead for me with you know, even 24 hours ahead. What do I need to do now to put me in good stead for tomorrow? Whether that be like my insulin, reducing it, like, if I'm about to have a big day, my long acting, yeah, what I eat. Yeah, it's I saw this graphic on Instagram, and it was like diabetics have to make like over 250 more decisions each day. And I was like thinking about that. And then I caught myself in the car driving, and I was just like subconsciously thinking about, okay, when am I eating next? Like, what am I going to eat? And I was like, damn, that's actually what we have to, like, that's what happens in our brains. So it's just, it's that probably times two for me, I guess, because my energy levels get depleted like more often than non-athletes, I guess.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Well, I think I've seen those graphics and those stats, and recently someone came on the podcast and they told me something that was similar, but it added a little bit more information. It was like the average person has like 3,000 thoughts a day or something like that,
mm,
3 to 5,000 thoughts a day. Even if it's just like, oh, that water is blue or this shirt's black. Like you're not really thinking about it actively, but it's
yeah.
crossing your mind. And people with diabetes have double with that because you're thinking
Oh,
about so then it's like 10,000 thoughts or whatever whatever the number of thoughts per day that you have. So
mm,
that's why people are fatigued. That's why we get burned out. That's why we have anxiety because there's so much going on in our minds. And then you throw that in for you being a professional athlete where the demands on your time and your fitness and your schedule or your travel are also much higher. Diabetes just adds another layer of complexity to that.
yeah, for sure. I mean, that's definitely crazy to think. And we don't really have a choice. Hey, we can't just be like, oh, it's all right today. I'm just not going to think about it. And I'm going to pretend like I don't have diabetes. Like, I mean, we can't really do that. So, yeah, the fact that just having diabetes is like hard enough. So, if we can just like keep, pursuing and keep doing as best as we can, that's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and like you said, there's no days off. There's no
Mm,
there's no paid time off. There's no vacations.
yes.
No
I
benefits,
wish.
right?
Yeah, literally.
And so, yeah, it can be challenging. And then for you, I guess, what is sort of on your if you're going to have a big day? Because I know, when I talk to athletes with diabetes, that's some of the questions that they have is that when it's a training camp or it's a tournament or it's something, a big game that means a lot. Like, what's on your diabetes checklist? How do you get ready for competition in that way?
I'm one of those people, I'm not really superstitious. I don't have a game day routine outside of diabetes. The main thing I try to focus on is I try to make sure I'm between 9 and 11, 2 hours before the game. And if I can do that and then like kind of ride that zone through, that's going to set me up to not like crash or go high throughout the game. Yeah, so I keep my like meal times and what I eat pretty similar to normal days just so that I don't get that fluctuation, which is what I found for me. Obviously, like it's different for everyone, but yeah, just kind of making sure that I'm in between that zone like a couple of hours before the game has worked for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, it's always like, how many variables can I minimize, right?
Mm,
So I can count on my blood sugars being stable in a range that I like. Because I don't know about you, but if my blood sugars are out of range, I play terrible sometimes. Like, and then other times
mhm.
I don't know. Just I feel if my bloods are low, I'm kind of like goofy and fluid, and if my bloods are high, I like can't catch, and I'm like angry. It's just I don't know, crazy. So I always had to make sure that I kept my sugars in range as much as possible.
Yeah, for sure. I feel the same way. Like I had this game in our season that we just won with Rockhampton where I had like 7 turnovers, and that is uncharacteristic of me. And I literally subbed myself off. I was like, this better be my diabetes because if it's just me, I should quit. But it's like, yeah, but just being out of range is annoying, but then when you're trying to perform, it's hard as well because it affects your concentration and your coordination. So, yeah, having those things under control always helps.
I love that. Yeah, it's just
Mm,
nice to know that I was the only one going through that, and it's good to have the diabetes to blame sometimes too on that.
yeah. Oh, for
Um,
sure. Yeah.
so I want to dig into like some of the you've talked about your support system, talked about having people around you that have empowered you and helped you in your diabetes journey. What do you think the best diabetes advice you've been given is?
Definitely from my diabetes doctor. She told me it's a marathon, like it's a marathon, not a sprint. I was like, yeah, that, well, I mean, it's true. Like we're trying to live as long as we can with managing this disease. So it's not like, even though the small choices that we make impact the long run, like if we have a shit day, it's going to be okay. Like, yeah, that was definitely the best advice. I think that also helps like mentally, like you don't have to be absolutely perfect. You just have to be doing the best that you can. To some extent, you want it to be pretty good. Obviously, your control, but yeah, that definitely helps me on the days where I feel like I can't get with it. So yeah,
It's such a interesting metaphor too, because it's like a never ending marathon, and you
yeah,
have to, you mentioned it, like celebrate small wins. It's interesting to me. I've been thinking a lot about the way basketball and diabetes affect the way that I see the world. And something recently that's come up for me a lot is, the best shooters in the world miss 6 out of 10 in a game, and so
mm,
like, how can I expect to get every single bolus and every single dose 100% right all the time, or 100% time and range? That's just an unrealistic expectation. And, what makes those shooters great is that they're not thinking about the last miss. They're just focused on the next one. And so, trying to find a way to, even if, like you said, you had a shit day of your diabetes management, the next day you're going to get back up and you're going to try again.
yeah, for sure. Like the fact that it can correlate between the basketball and the diabetes, it's just yeah, it makes sense though. Like it's not like you're gonna base your decisions on like in the name of the mistakes that you've made. Like you're trying to improve and yeah, just keep living each day as it comes, really.
100%. What do you think on the other side of that question? What do you think is the worst diabetes advice that you've been given?
Definitely. I don't know. That's a good question. I've never been asked that question actually.
Yeah, it's
The
new for me. So I was trying to think of what, because I think so many times there's so many like stigmas or misinformation that people give. And so I wanted to see if there was
mm,
just bad advice or, bad information that people have been given. And I'm also trying to challenge myself to ask better questions. So, this is what I get, I guess, for trying.
success. Yeah. I don't know. Okay, this isn't necessarily information, but the last time I had like a big hypo and I had to go in the ambulance, they like jack you up with glucose, right? And we all know what happens after you have a low and you have a lot of glucose, you go right back up. So I've always wondered, like, why do the ambos just jack you up with glucose? They should know that you're going to spike. Do you know what I mean?
It is wild. I think like, and this is something in the States that we're dealing with, especially, is just like diabetes education across our medical fields, and
Yeah.
people who aren't specialists often don't experience more than a few days of diabetes education in their medical
Mm,
school. And so, as you know, like, there's so much more information, and they just may not have gotten it. So that ambulance tech, they know that if you're having a hypo that you need glucose, but they may not know how much. And, and then I think also it can be really challenging in those moments where they want to protect you, but you're like, oh
yeah,
no, I'm
true.
like, I'm like 250 going way up, double arrows up, or, I guess, 20 millimolars going up.
Mm,
Like I need to stop having this glucose. And they don't necessarily know, that's what's going on.
yeah. I mean, I don't know what it's like. I'm not very across what people get taught, like in paramedicine or whatever. But yeah, that always blew my mind because yeah, I had a big low, and then they would just we have the glucose tubes or whatever,
Hmm.
and I was with my friend, and my friend had never seen like me have a hypo like badly before, and she was stressed, poor thing. But they just kept giving them to me, and then later, like literally, I came with it like about 10 minutes later, and I was like, I'm gonna be so high later and it's just gonna be the cycle. But yeah,
Just
I wouldn't
riding
say
that
I've
roller coaster.
literally, yeah. I wouldn't say I've been given any bad advice or information, but just experienced some weird things, I guess.
For sure. So I want to have some advice from you to some young people who are living with diabetes, who either have a dream to be an athlete or just have a big dream to do something, in their life. Like, what advice would you give someone out there listening with diabetes today?
But I would just say that, especially in today's environment with the social media awareness, especially, I mean, that's how most of us are connected and find out things, I guess, these days. You definitely don't have to hide. You don't have to hide it. And I think just being upfront with it and talking to your team or talking to the people who you could be working with if you, for example, are trialing for a state team or you're trialing for a team that's about to go into tournament. Yeah, definitely don't hide it. That just shows like how, good your character is. You want to take ownership and just be like, you don't want to have to worry about not being able to be fully yourself and take care of yourself when, trying to do things that you enjoy. So I would just say, yeah, don't have to hide it and people will look after you. Yeah, if you're in the right group, people will look after you. So yeah.
Were you always open about your diabetes while you were, playing and with your teammates, with your staff, with your coaches, things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with like the first few like state teams I was with, it was kind of the first situations where I would have to go away from home and I would be in the care of other people essentially because I wasn't 18 yet. Yeah, so I always had to be like open with them. And I'd also always just had people around me that asked a lot of questions, which sometimes can literally be the bane of my existence, but it's good, I guess, because like the question asking is just like representative of they want to learn. And if they care about you, they'll ask you questions as well so that they can be prepared for situations that might happen. Yeah.
I definitely understand though. Sometimes those questions, if your blood sugars are a little out of range, maybe they hit you in the wrong time and they just feel really invasive.
Oh yeah, for sure. And even sometimes I've had this. I was sitting in a shopping center one time and I was with my dad and I was like clearly doing my blood sugar levels because I didn't have the CGM at the time. And this random guy just wakes up and was like, oh, walks up and was like, oh, can you do mine? And I'm like, mate, piss off. Leave me alone. But yeah, no, they definitely rub me the wrong way sometimes.
Yeah, me too. I'm guilty of it. Just, sometimes it's especially if I'm in a situation where I'm not doing well with it and I'm having to
Mm,
juggle a couple of things, like it occasionally will come off, I've said some things. Even I had a teammate one time who was asking me a very like innocent, like fine question and I jumped down as to it was pretty funny, but I apologize later. It's all don't I apologize for what I said when my blood sugar was high. That's for sure.
uh, yeah, yeah, we love it.
I saw a video of you the other day on social media, and you mentioned, social media is how we all kind of get connected. And you were like wearing the mic, going through practice,
Oh my
and
gosh.
chatting it up, having a good time, during a shoot around. What kind of teammate is Lara McSpadden? Like, for those not familiar with your game on the court, like, what do you bring to your team?
I ability aside, that's like the person and the teammate that I am is definitely what I pride myself on. Growing up, like outside of my professional career, I didn't play much. So I had to be a good teammate and I had to know what like I had to do to remain on team. So like listen to coaches, make sure I was helping like other people as well whilst doing the job that the coaches want me to do. But yeah, I mean, I would say that I'm pretty silly. I love having fun, but also when it's like crunch time, I'm so serious and I've definitely gotten more competitive as my career has gone on. But yeah, I was the captain of my NBL1 team for the last 3 years, and I think that's definitely helped, um, develop my character as a teammate as well, just rather than having, you're focused on yourself, and now, like, having to see the team from a whole perspective and make sure that everyone's doing well because, I mean, you would know, like, it's hard sometimes playing basketball, like people have different roles, they're doing it for different reasons. Not everyone's had the same experience. So, yeah, doing it from that perspective has definitely kind of changed the way that I even approach like my game these days. Like, I just want to make sure people feel that they are valued no matter what they do. Like, you're on a team because you bring something. So, yeah, that's kind of, I guess, who I am. But yeah, I love to have a joke. So that's me.
You got to have those people around too.
Yeah.
I love that though, because I know I'm getting older. I'll be 36 in a couple of weeks, and I know I'm getting older because I'm starting to talk like a coach, and it's
No.
really scary. It really is. But I love people who really take on the role of being a great teammate because it's a skill and it doesn't get credit a lot of times for being a skill. But if you look at, the players who continue to get contracts, the players who continue to get responsibility and minutes, even if there's somebody out there maybe whose skills are a little bit better or who are equal, the job's going to go to the good teammate. And, the good teams have more good teammates than bad. And so I think that's something as a young player, like you said, everybody has their role. And everybody wants to, at least I wanted to shoot every time. I wanted to be the
Nice.
volume scorer. That's the fun stuff. I wanted to see my name in the paper, but as my career progressed, my role was not that. And, I had to be the guy that showed up to practice to get the team ready. And then, when my number got called, I had to stay ready for that. And so I think that's something where I think it's really inspiring to see someone like you who went from, like you said earlier in your career, not playing as many minutes and then being the captain of your, WNBL team like 3 years in a row. I imagine there were days where, you didn't want to go out and get to work. You didn't want to be a good teammate, but you did it anyway.
Yeah, for sure. And like we all have those days, but at the end of the day, I guess, I mean, I really want to win. So I was like, even though today I don't want to deal with you or you or you or you, I want to win and I want everyone to get better. And I know if I'm having a bad time, other people are going to be able to see that I'm having a bad time because I can't control my facial expressions. So I need to fake it. I need to fake it a lot of the time, but most of the time it's genuine. But yeah, no, I've really loved that part of basketball.
All right. So now, diabetes in basketball, we're coming back to it. Do you have a favorite story about managing diabetes in a basketball game or practice or road trip or something that stands out?
I do. So when I played the first 4 of my pro years in Sydney, and I think it was in the 3rd year. We were warming up. So it was me, my mate, Ali Wilson, and Vanessa Panousis. I've said this story so many times. She's going to be like, Lara. Anyway, I'm one of those people that can eat anything before a game and not feel sick. So at the,
I know that I knew those people were out there. I wish I was
yes.
one of them.
So in this situation, I can't remember what blood sugar level I was. I wasn't low, but I was like on the lower side of my range. I was like, Mum, can you get me some banana bread from the cafe? Like, I just want it now. And it won't like, it's not gonna like mess with my levels like too much. And I was eating it as we were like doing leg swings or stretches or something. And Vanessa, my teammate, she's like, "Oh, are you a bit hungry, La?" And I was like, "Mate, you know I have diabetes and I'm eating this for my health." And just like she was like, "I'm so sorry." Like every time people make a joke about me eating, I'm like, I've got diabetes, and they like feel so incredibly bad. But half the time I'm just taking the piss. So yeah, that was really funny in the moment. I mean, we bring it up all the time, but yeah,
It sounds like you're living somebody's dream being able to eat banana bread during warm-ups. I mean, come on.
literally,
Who says no? Who says no?
absolutely.
Oh, I love it. All right. Well, we got some rapid fire questions for you as we kind
Let's
of
go.
lock in. So lock in here. This is we got some fun ones coming. So
Okay.
all right, on the diabetes front, what's your favorite hypo snack?
At the moment, there's these lollies or candy that have it's like raspberry, but they have sherbet on the inside. They're
Wow.
called they're called like twisters or something like that. Yeah. But I mean, I've orange juice is like my thing. Yeah.
That's your go-to. I
Yeah.
like it. All right. Favorite thing to do on an off day?
Go to the beach for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, you got a great. Now I know. The reason number two, at least top five reasons why you're with the Toranaga Y is hey,
At
why not
least.
day? Okay, who's your favorite athlete?
Oh, damn, that's tough, and I wish I could answer this quicker. I really like Jack McVeigh. That's not even a hard question. I should have said that sooner. Yeah.
All right.
He's just like, not that he started from the bottom, but where he is now, like started from the bottom. Now he's like achieving his dreams kind of guy. So, and yeah, he does a really good job of like promoting, like, I guess, mental health for athletes and how he deals with his like, or the anxieties that he faced during playing basketball. Yeah.
Oh, I want to hold on that because we can talk about that maybe at the end as like mental health as part of being an athlete. But we got to stick with the rapid fires here. So we got to keep getting them up. What are you currently listening to?
Shits and gigs.
All right,
As in, wait, podcast or music?
podcast or music. So that shits and gigs is a podcast, I assume. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So what about
Yeah.
music?
I'm, I'm in New Zealand, so I'm currently on my Polynesian wave.
All right, I like it.
But yeah, I like it. It's cool.
Okay, so are you a homebody or an adrenaline junkie?
Oh God. Is there an in between?
I guess so. I
Okay.
mean, just
I guess if you're asking me to pick, not an adrenaline junkie. I have a fear of heights, which I like to prove to myself that I can still do things, but no.
heights is where you draw the line.
Yeah,
All right. All right, cats or dogs?
dogs.
Pump or MDI?
MDI. Oh my God, why do I speak so long?
Well, I thought I was judging myself at first because I thought MDI maybe like doesn't translate Australia, to the Australian side or the millimolar side. So injections.
Yes.
All right, movies or TV shows?
TV shows.
All right. Cool. Well, but as we kind of wrap up, I loved the idea, and didn't necessarily have it in the outline, but like talking about mental health, especially as an athlete, like it's so important. You mentioned, being on social media and connecting with other people with diabetes and how like that community and that what ties us together can really help. But one of the things, and I think we just had like World Mental Health Day a couple days
Mhm.
ago, and we know that people with diabetes suffer from anxiety and depression at higher rates than the rest of the population. So for you, when you encounter those low moments, either as an athlete or living with diabetes, like what's kind of your mental health checklist? How do you make sure you kind of get back into the positive side?
Definitely talking to my friends. I would say my close friends helps fill my cup a lot. But yeah, just getting outside, reading my book, or just even just like reminding myself that like this is just what's happening right now and it's not gonna last forever. Yeah. Because I mean, like we've talked about, we have to think like so far ahead and we ask ourselves so many questions. So kind of just resetting and acknowledging that like what's happening now is happening now and it's not gonna last and trying to move forward and asking myself like what I can do to, like get out of it is that's kind of what my checklist is. Yeah.
That's really good. I think, there's so much emphasis now on living in the present. And,
Mm.
now I'm a very, very washed in terms of my basketball abilities now as a
Oh, washed.
36-year-old. But that's an important part of my mental health is because I can't be on the phone. I can't be thinking about something
Mm.
else. I have to be in the moment and in the flow. And, all of these the world's greatest scientists and researchers have done the work, and they just said, hey, maybe go outside, touch some grass a couple times a day, and it'll remind you that you're just a person on a big spinning planet. And it's, we can slow down a little bit. So that's really, really good advice. So, Laura, as we kind of wrap the interview up, any kind of parting thoughts or anything as you think about doing well with diabetes, and anything that you'd like our listeners to know?
Not really. I feel like we've kind of covered a lot. I guess. Oh, I don't know. I guess I just like remind people to keep doing what makes them happy because like we have this thing that we have to deal with every day and it can be tough. But if we're doing like just one good thing for ourselves every day, then that'll make the job a whole lot easier. So yeah, and be kind to yourself too. Don't be so hard on yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great advice. I think, we have to be kind and treat ourselves the way we would treat our friends. I think that
Mm,
sometimes we can be a little bit too hard, speaking for myself, and be a little too hard on myself and with my diabetes management than I would ever be on somebody else. And so good to
mm,
remember.
yeah,
Well,
for sure.
Laura, for people who want to get in, follow you or follow you more closely, or obviously like stream a game if they're over here in the US
Sure.
or across the world, where's the best place to find you?
On Instagram, my handle is Lara McSpadden 14. In terms of our games, we are on ESPN. Yep. ESPN. Also, we're on the FIBA Toihi, which is the NZBL streaming website. So, yeah, if you just search FIBA Toihi New Zealand Basketball League, our games will come up. Yeah, I'm on Twitter as well, Lara McSpadden. Yeah, that's me.
I love it. Well, I'm definitely going to stream a game this season, and yeah, we got to be like we'll get the calendar synced up. It'll be we'll figure it out, and yeah, I can't wait. So thank you so much for being a part of this series, and we'll include all the links to your profiles in the show notes for those who want to get in contact with you. And thank you for being such a great example for doing well with diabetes.
Oh, cheers, Rob. It's been great to be on the show and meet you and talk to you.
Likewise, been a long time coming. My
Right?
first with diabetes. It's like such a small like group of people, and I just thought,
Mm,
I love meeting people who we have so much in common and didn't even really know until the internet is able to connect us. So really great.
mhm. Right.
All right, cheers, Laura. Doing Well with Diabetes is a series interviewing athletes living with diabetes from around the globe to help inspire the next generation of athletes with diabetes to continue to work towards their dreams while doing well with diabetes. Doing Well with Diabetes is part of the Kids and Diabetes in Schools program from the International Diabetes Federation and is supported by Sanofi and ISBAD. Diabetics Doing Things has donated all production and promotion in kind. To learn more about the Kids program, visit kids.idf.org. And to hear more from Diabetics Doing Things, visit diabeticsdoingthings.com/subscribe. Now give it up for our next guest on Doing Well with Diabetes.